Hey, welcome back. It's Terry from Everything Homestead. I was working on the greenhouse the other day, and one of my most used tools that I owned was this drill. And it started malfunctioning on me. The battery's acting up, and it wouldn't fire like it should. And I've had this thing for such a long time. And it's an off-brand. It's a Master Force brand. I don't know if you can see it with the reflection or not. It's a 20-volt battery-operated drill. I think I've had to trying to think maybe 10 years I've owned this thing. I've used it a lot. I've done remodels in a couple different places. I've helped a guy construct an addition on a house, putting up sheetrock, setting in the screws, obviously drilling holes wherever needed. I've used it for wire brushing things, run that for that. I just use it for a ton of things. And with the sheetrock work, as dusty as can be, and you'd think the dust would get in there and absolutely ruin these things, but this thing has just been going like crazy for so long. I bought it, wasn't the most expensive thing in the market because it's all I could afford at the time. There's other ones similar to it that cost double, triple, quadruple what this thing cost, but at the time this is what I could afford. Surprisingly enough, it's worked great. So when I had this thing malfunctioning on me, I actually went out and decided I need to buy a new one. And most of the tools that I have are usually, I buy them used at garage sales, auctions, or something like that. Some of the things I've had gifted to me, but most of the stuff I just don't like spending a ton of money on because I'm not a professional contractor and I'm not going to be relying on these things for my living day in and day out. So I don't see the point in spending a ton of money on this stuff. So it brought me to this idea of this is probably my most favorite thing I have in my shop as far as things I use all the time. Sometimes I go on trips someplace, I'll throw this in my truck with me because you could use it for a nut driver if you have to, screwdriver with the different bits and stuff like that. So, having said that, I went to my local hardware store and bought a brand new one. Same thing, same brand, except this one comes in a bag. And it's got a Velcro strap. Gotta get it apart and unzip it. This one comes with the battery charger, pretty much the same as the other one. And it comes with the new version of what I just showed you, except it's more compact here. It's lighter overall by a little bit. It's the same 20-volt battery. So pretty much exactly the same as far as the battery goes, but it's supposed to have all the modern things that the drills have. It's a brushless model, but along with that came a driver with it, which is very handy. These things, you put the screwdriver tip in there and you can get this down between floor joists and run them in if you have to in tight spaces. I haven't ever had one of these things before. I've used them before in different places. I've always wanted one, and it just so happened it came as a kit. So happy to have it. But that's that. Now, it's primarily, this old thing was a drill. And to be self-sustainable, not reliant on everything like that. What if your electricity goes out? Well, then the batteries won't be able to charge. And I don't ever plan on having that happen, but just in case, I have a couple of options here. Don't laugh. But you could always go to this. This is called a breast drill. Hold it like this, set your drill bit in here, and drill away. I hope it doesn't come to that, but if I have to, I've got it. And the more common one that you probably have seen is the old-fashioned brace, like this. Put the bit in here and crank away. These things you can find all over the place. Garage sales, you can get them for $1. Auctions, they almost give them away. These things, a little bit more expensive. You can probably find them for around $30. Maybe antique stores sell them, you can get them there. But the toughest thing to find that goes along with these things are the bits. They have the different size wood bits, if you're going through wood anyways. These don't work on metal, but they've got this squared off end that's specially made to fit in the ends of these things. You can use regular bits if you want, especially for the wood, I guess, but these do fit in nicer and they hold better. They're hard to find, they're getting kind of expensive. So if the power goes out, I'll be able to drill a hole in some wood anyway. Along with the electric drill, there's a variety of bits that go along with that. Nice to have. Every bit under the sun is usually in these kits. These aren't that expensive, you can buy them brand new. All right, moving on to the next thing that I use all the time in my shop. Yeah, I have a variety of measuring devices, but this thing is a digital one. You push the button on, and I'll turn it on here. And it gives you the digital readout exactly to what you're trying to measure. I didn't zero it out there, but I use this all the time. If I have a bolt and I need to get another one at the hardware store, I don't know the exact size, just put this on there and measure it. You know, you can do the length, you can do the diameter, you can do the millimeters, fractions, whatever you need. These things come in handy all the time. Working on the car, if I've got a hose I need to replace, you can measure the inside diameter, outside diameter, any of those things. These things come in handy all the time. The next tool that I use all the time is something as simple as this, pipe wrench. Pretty self-explanatory. If you ever go to a garage sale auction, get one of these, make sure the teeth aren't all worn down, because if these are smoothed off, rounded off, it doesn't grip for the hoot. But these things come in handy. You can grab them, it's what it is to crank on a pipe originally. If you've got a pipe with a big old fitting on there, this will clamp onto that fitting too. A lot of different options with this. There's short ones, bigger ones. I actually use this one more than I use this one, believe it or not. Having options are handy around the place. Moving on to the next thing I use all the time. I like to work on my own car. A little auto scan tool. This thing has saved me thousands of dollars. You just have to do a little tutorial on it. Maybe go online and learn how to use it. There's an instruction manual that goes with it. You gotta do a little learning with this to use it, but it saves you a ton of money a lot of times working on your own car. Electronic device, you plug it in underneath your dash, go through the codes of your vehicle, it'll tell you what's wrong. There's been a couple times I plugged it in because the engine light comes on in the dash. Plugged it in and it told me exactly what was wrong. All it was is a sensor. Open up the hood in the car, unplug the sensor, throw the sensor, plug in the new $10 sensor, done. Save myself probably a couple $100 and the time to take it to the mechanic. These things are really well worth it. I use them all the time. It's amazing how many friends you find that need help too. They seem to track you down if they know you have one of these. Glad to help them know because it saves them money too. Next thing, it kind of goes back along the lines of measuring devices. You just flat out, you gotta have a tape measure. I mean, come on, this is like the basic of basic. You should have one in your home, in your shop. You know, you just need one. Along with that, there's the real tape measures. These things though, I mean, used for obviously longer distances. This is a 100-foot tape. If you're gonna use one of these, I would recommend getting two of them, because I guess from my own experiences, I use them to, if you're laying out a building frame and you're trying to square up your markers, you need two of these in conjunction with each other. It goes a lot quicker. You don't need two, but it makes it a lot easier. You might as well have two of them. Get a couple people, you can stake out your corners real fast. Everything will be nice and square with using these. Next tool you should have, a circular saw. And here again, you can go crazy spending a lot of money on one of these. There are some really nice ones out there, and they are nice, especially if you do this for a living. But when you don't do it for a living, don't spend the money, just get something cheaper. I mean, this one isn't that cheap, it's probably 70 bucks, but it's the cheapest one out there if you had to go buy a new one. You can find these also at garage sales auctions too. these things, you can change the angle of the cut. You can change the depth the blade goes. You can cut a lot of stuff with this thing here. Rip sheets of plywood. So it's great. And there again, if you lose power, trying to be self-reliant, you could always go to this. Nothing wrong with this. I still use it sometimes if I just got one piece of wood and I don't want to take the time to go find it out and stuff like that. I'll still use one of these. If they're sharp, kept in good condition, they do work really well. And along with that, you got to have one of these of some type. If you're going to be out at the homestead, you should have one of these. You're going to have fallen down branches, trees. You cut your own firewood, you definitely need one of these. I'll do another video some other time on the different varieties of these and what might fit your applications. And obviously, if the power goes out, you can use one of these for the 2x4, 2x6s. But if you've got a tree that's down, this ain't gonna work. If power goes out, you think, well, I'll grab my chainsaw. Well, that's fine, Danny, until you run out of fuel. Go to the gas station. If they don't have power, you don't have fuel. But I think I'll be okay. I got this figured out too. So the next thing I have, moving down the list of 12, a level. This is another thing. I use it all the time. I have the little torpedo ones. This is a 2-foot. I've got a 4-foot someplace. I've got a 6-foot. This is the one I use most often. If you have to pick just one, 2-foot. You can hang a shelf with this, make the shelf level. Framing up stuff, you can always just use this. I use this for all sorts of stuff. You gotta have one. Sockets, socket wrenches. There's a huge variety of these things on the market. There's the standard sizes, the metric sizes. Not sure why there's got to be always two. I'd rather have one, but it is what it is. Now they have, this is a 1/2 inch drive. They make the 3/8 inch drive, which is this one. This is just for the smaller bolts, obviously. They also, I've got a 3/4 inch drive set here too. There's pneumatic I have. The black sockets are for the pneumatic tools. They're a little bit stronger made to withstand more power. Tons and tons of options. You got the short sockets, the deep sockets. You got the pneumatic sockets. You got the metric. You got the standard sizes. You've got the, I believe this is a 12-point socket. And so is this one. They make 6-point sockets. There's lots of options. Me, I want to have them all, because when I'm working on something, I want my options readily available. I don't want to have to cobble up something else to get the job done. So at least get the basics though, the basic sets. Whether it's a 3/8 or a 1/2 inch, at least have a set to do something. But these things also in the shop I use all the time. Kind of along the same lines, box end wrenches. These two, it's just a simplified version of a socket. But these two come in the metric sizes, the standard sizes, and different. You even can get ratcheting ones. I believe this one would be the ratcheting end. Get ratcheting ones. You can get some that have bends in the handle. But these, a lot of times, you see they're really narrow. You can slip down into a tight spot and get the bolt that you need loosened, as opposed to this would not fit in that little narrow spot. So these definitely have their place. And if you're going to be working in your shop around the place, I do use these all the time. And these next three, they're all a little different, but I put them in the same category. Crescent wrench. Comes in handy. It will take the place of these in a pinch. I'd rather use these if I can. But this is an adjustable wrench. You thread this and get to whatever size bolt you want. If you're coming to your shop grabbing one tool because you've got a loose bolt out in the field, you don't know what size it is, you just take this as opposed to a whole set of tools. Just take this, match it to whatever. It doesn't matter if it's metric or standard, this will work. Along with that, I have channel lock pliers. These things too come in handy. They're adjustable in size for whatever you're gripping onto, whether it be a pipe, a bolt, or whatever. These are nice because I got the ones with a little bit longer handle so you get more grip on what you're doing to turn. And the last one of those three is the traditional vice grip pliers. These things, you open it up, you can adjust for the size of the nut or bolt you're working with, and you clamp it down, it locks on really tight and get a good grip on stuff because they have some decent teeth on them to grip onto the bolt. These things will really mar up the nut on a bolt. Just make sure you're not too particular about how it looks when you're done, but this does work nice. You ask any farmer that you come across, on your tractor, what do you take with you for tools? Because you break down in the field, and what do you take for tools? I mean, you can't have a great big toolbox in your tractor. They'll almost always say a hammer and a vice grip. These are the two most universal things a farmer has with them. This thing can grab on to almost anything. This pounds on anything, obviously. You can use a claw to scratch, tear, pry. These are the two things farmers use on their tractor. And the second to last thing I have is a hammer. For crying out loud, you gotta have a hammer. Should be in your house, should be in your shop, maybe one in your vehicle, on your tractor. You gotta have a hammer. This is about as dainty as I ever want to go with a hammer. So I do have one that's a little bigger. Believe it or not, claw hammers for bringing up nails and stuff like that. If that doesn't work, bring up a little bit more weight. There are times when you're swinging at something, not necessarily a nail, could be a nail. If you're trying to pound a board off of a building or off of wherever, you need a little bit more weight behind your blow. This thing can make a huge difference. It's a lot more weight behind than this. But sometimes that doesn't work. So then you just get a bigger one. If you're gonna have hammers around the Homestead, get a variety of them. Now these, I picked these up at auction. They usually go for like 50 cents to $1 a piece. You go to the hardware store, you can be paying a lot more than that. Probably, $30 and up. Now if that isn't enough, then you just get the next size up like this one. And then if that isn't enough, get Big Bertha going here. I've used this quite a bit actually. This is the one I use the most. If I need to really hit something that needs a lot of pounding, I use this one the most. And the last thing that's the greatest invention ever for tools. It's an oscillating saw. I love this thing. Use it all the time for lots of different things. They sell the individual blades that attach to them. There's ones for wood, there's ones for metal, there's ones for nails, there's ones for sheetrock. You can use it for sanding. I'm getting down to the saw itself here. But this thing here, this one, they make battery operated ones too. I just get the corded ones. Another thing that you can spend a lot of money on too. This thing was 18 bucks, maybe 19 now. I bought one 7-8 years ago, and it finally went out, and like, big deal, 18 bucks, went out, bought another one. I mean, this might last me the rest of my life, who knows? But I don't mind finding an outlet, extension cord, whatever you gotta do. These things are amazing. I can draw a line in sheetrock, take this, slick as a whistle. I've had trim work in a house. The board needs to be trimmed. It's already attached to the wall, but it needs to be trimmed a little bit in some spot or another. You can put a different blade on there, do some fine cutting on it. Works great. I've used it for I've had to take a board off of a wall one time, but there's a nail stuck in. Slip this between the two pieces of wood and cut that nail and pop it off. This thing is so universal, works great. Best invention of all these tools I've showed you so far. And I'd highly recommend getting one of these. You can use this in all sorts of things. I've used it to chip adhesive off of the floor, off of a cement floor one time. It's got just like a putty knife blade, I guess you call it. It just goes like this, side to side, it oscillates, and just zip it along the cement floor and peeled up the adhesive from an old, I think it was carpet on there, it used to be. I just use it all the time, works great. I have so many other tools that I use all the time. Believe it or not, it was hard to come up with just this small amount. There's a lot of variations of all these, but if you need us at a starting point, these are the tools I recommend. I do use them all the time. There are a lot more out there. Check out the garage sales to get these. Take your time. You don't have to get them right now. Garage sale season comes up. You'll find them really cheap. It's not going to be a problem. And you'll have them. You might not use them but once a year sometimes for some of them. But when you need them, you'll have it. That's the way it goes. So thanks for watching. I'll have another video out soon about chainsaws, different applications, trying to identify what chainsaw worked best for your needs. I've got a couple other things I'll show you as far as supplies. This is primarily tools. There are supplies that you probably have on hand for your homestead that could come in handy in a pinch. You'd be surprised at things that I've pulled out of my shop. My wife didn't even know I had, but it sure helped in a pinch. So, catch you later.